Welcome to the Business Communication Center tutorial on APA sources. This tutorial will cover the basics, the definition of citations and references, what and where they are. Also, we'll talk about identifying credible sources and what kind of information to cite. Then we'll give the reasons it's important to cite and reference our information, and we'll discuss plagiarism. So APA is the style guide that is used to cite and reference sources in business. You don't need to read the text in this. It's just simply here to show you the difference between a citation and a reference. So these terms are used interchangeably, but they really mean two different things. A citation appears in the paragraph after a sentence containing source information. In APA, that citation includes the author or source, the year of publication, and the page number if there is one. We call it the author date style. On the reference page at the end of the document, there will be a coordinating reference for that citation, and it will include much more information in case the reader wants to find that article themselves. It will begin the same way the citation begins, with the author or source and then the year of publication. So when we talk about sources, where are these sources of information? They're in everything from books and articles to verbal speeches and online sources. They also include emails, tweets, lectures and videos. Also codes, programming code, internal revenue code. Those have to be cited, although those codes are cited differently than APA. Occasionally in the syllabus, you will see a professor state, do not cite Wikipedia. So the reason for this is that anyone can write an article in Wikipedia. You don't have to be an expert in the field. So it's not considered a reliable source. So beyond knowing I cannot use Wikipedia, how do I determine whether a source is credible or not? Well, one way to understand credible sources is to use this guideline that was developed by Sarah Blakeslee in 2004. It's an acronym, and yes, it spells CRAP. So the idea is we're trying to determine if our source is credible or quality, or if our source is crap. So the C stands for currency. This is about the timeliness of the information. When I'm using a source, I want to find out if it's timely. For example, in business writing, if I'm citing something about technology that is 5 years old, it may be woefully out of date. In 2019, the USDA determined that 10.5% of American households were food insecure, but then we had the pandemic. And a study at Northwestern University determined that in 1 year, that had doubled, that figure had doubled. So if I'm citing something that's a little bit older, it may be out of date. I want to make sure that my source is timely. Relevance. Is the source I'm citing related to my topic? Is it intended for my audience, or is it too elementary or too advanced for my audience? And did I look at a variety of sources before I determined which one to use? Authority. Now, this authority is one of the question areas on the guideline that made this guideline kind of resurge in popularity in 2017 with the election and candidacy of Donald Trump. Now, this was because fact checking became important, especially in response to his fake news statements. So when we're thinking about authority, we're talking about who the author is, who published the article, who was the sponsor. What about this website? Who's on the board of directors? What are their credentials? Are they experts in the field? Are they qualified to make the claims and statements that they are? An expert has to be more than just an accomplished or smart. An expert needs to have knowledge that's based on education, experience, research, and skills in the area. So determine if the authority is an expert. Accuracy. This is kind of an easy way sometimes to determine non-credible sources. If I'm reading an article and there seem to be quite a few punctuation and grammar mistakes or errors, then that source probably has not been peer reviewed and it may very well not be credible. Also, is the language used emotional or biased? If it is, it's probably not going to be a credible source. And then finally, the P in purpose, the purpose. Why is this information here? Was its purpose to teach and inform, or was its purpose to persuade or entertain? That's also going to reflect on whether the source is credible. So why do we need to cite, or what do we need to cite and reference? Basically, everything. We're going to have to cite words that we used, exact words. Even if we paraphrase the source words, we'll have to cite and reference that. In any information that we find, tables, graphs, pictures, images, figures, even if I just got an idea from another source, I have to say where that idea came from. There's one exception, and that is generally accepted knowledge. So those would be statements that everybody knows. For instance, a year has 365 days. I don't have to cite and reference that. Also, this will apply to your field of study or industry. For instance, in accounting, everybody knows that the self-employed report their taxable income on a 1099. So a statement like that would not need to be cited or referenced. And then the reasons that we need to cite and reference are several. First of all, citing and referencing experts supports our ideas. That makes us look smart. I'm saying source A says this, source B says that. I agree, but I also think we need to consider my wonderful idea. We're joining into a scholarly or professional conversation, basically. This citations and references will also refer the reader to additional information, and it's the right thing to do. It gives credit where credit is due. And finally, citing and referencing prevents plagiarism. Now, educators have different views of what constitutes plagiarism, but basically we're going to say it's theft from another source. So these are some of the ways that we inadvertently or sometimes on purpose commit plagiarism. If I forgot to put quotation marks around the exact wording of the source, that's plagiarism. If I did not paraphrase properly, that constitutes paraphrasing. What we see most often in the Business Communication Center is patch writing, in which I put in a few of my words, 2 or 3 of the source words, 2 or 3 of my words, and kind of patched it all together. That's plagiarism. We all know we're not supposed to buy our papers from a paper mill. And then self-plagiarism typically does not occur in publishing in the workplace, but it does occur in academia when students use part of one paper they wrote and put it in another paper. All of our work at the academic level is supposed to be original. Invented sources typically occurs when students are very busy balancing school, family, and maybe even work, and they put off their research and then at the end kind of make up sources, or maybe they don't make up a source, but they say this information comes from this source when it didn't. So one little clue, our JSON professors are pretty smart and familiar with most of the sources we're going to be citing, and they know what these sources contain. So watch out for that. And then collusion. So this is typically when two students collaborate on a paper or presentation and they submit it under one student's name. That also is plagiarism. So in the workplace, we see plagiarism, of course, in journalism quite frequently. But as far as industry, we've got a couple of examples for you. This image on the left was the first image or logo that was used by the 2020 Olympic Committee. And Kinhiro Sano designed it. It looked amazingly close to a logo that Olivier Debay designed for a Norwegian theater. So the theater and Debay sued Sano for this, saying it was plagiarism. And the result was that the committee eventually withdrew the logo when they found out that Sano had been accused multiple times in the past of his logos being plagiarized. The bad thing about this, or one of the bad things, was that the committee had already started to use the logo, and so had some vendors. So there was quite a bit of money that already had been expended, and that was just a waste. And the committee was already under pressure because they had overextended their budgets. So here's an example of an app that Nissan developed. The developers that wrote the code copied part of the code for this app from Stack Overflow, which you can do, but they did not cite it. So when it got to quality assurance, since those experts did not know that part of the code had been copied from Stack Overflow, they didn't rewrite it. And because they didn't rewrite it, it made it more open to hacking. This downgraded Nissan's already flagging reputation due to its apps. So we know it's important in the workplace. Let's bring it closer to home and talk about in your classes. Say you're working on a team project and it's a paper, and you're working with a number of other students to write this paper. Now, you don't need to read the text here. This is just an example of citations gone wrong. So I'm working on this paper and I send my portion of the writing, which is this here, to Susie, my teammate, who is responsible for putting all of our writing together into one document. And Susie is going to double check our citations and references to make sure they're correct. She's also going to check to make sure that we paraphrased properly. And I send her this the night before the project is due, which is usually the way these things, the timing of these projects works out. So you remember a citation has the author and the year of publication and a page number. What we see here are numbers at the ends of sentences in parentheses. So there's no proper APA citation here. So Susie is like, what am I supposed to do with this? But not to worry, Susie, I also sent you this list. So what I'm saying is, this is a list of links. Number 3 on this list, that link corresponds with the number 3 here. So all Susie has to do is click on that link and it will take her to where the information is in this sentence. So she does. She clicks on that link and this is what she finds. So she tries calling me because she can't find out to check the citation and to write the citation or the reference, nor to check on my paraphrasing. So she tries calling me, but I'm fast asleep, having a good night's rest, whereas Susie may be pulling an all-nighter. But she's kind of between a rock and a hard place. I have actually given Susie a task that she cannot accomplish. So our paper's due at 10 the next morning. She's never been able to reach me. And when it gets to the professor, our professor is like, all right, team, where are your proper citations and references? And that may be reflected in my grade, or most likely what will happen is my teacher will refer our whole team to the Office of Standards and Conduct. And that office will determine whether or not we plagiarized, which probably they're going to have to say we did because we don't have a proper reference or citation. So I have let my entire team down because I did not know how to cite and reference in APA. It's important you know this for your team projects. Now, if you need help in citing and referencing, there's a couple of things you can do. On our website, you will find a couple of videos on exactly how to cite and reference. And we will do a 10K and also a company website. So that's going to be part of what you'll find. We also have a video on paraphrasing if you need more information on how to do that correctly. But I want to make you aware that at the Business Communication Center, you can get help for job search documents like resumes, also for any written documents you have in any of your classes, and any presentation assignments that you have. We also have a specialist for those learning English. So our ESL specialist is here to help you. Be careful about your citations and references. Make sure you include them and make sure that you do them properly. Come see us. Thank you.